Good afternoon and welcome everyone. In the presentation session, our three guests introduce their returnee research results in Chinese. Since CCG has a large international audience, in the discussion session, we will communicate in English. Firstly, I would like to introduce our three guests. David Zweig is the Vice President of CCG, Research Director of AGTO. He studied in Beijing in 1970s. Since 1991, he has surveyed and interviewed returned academics, scientists, entrepreneurs, and employees all over China. He has authored and edited 10 books, including The Internationalizing China. And Dr. Henry Wang Huiyao is the president of CCG. He was a counselor to China State Council and a vice chairman of China Association for International Economic Cooperation. He holds the position of the vice chairman at China Public Relations Association and serves as a director of Chinese People's Institution of Foreign Affairs. He is a steering committee member of the Paris Peace Forum and the editor of Springberg Nature China and Globalization series. He has published 100 books in English and Chinese, along with hundreds of journal articles and opinion pieces on global relations, global governance, global migration, China outbound and inbound investment and trade, and Chinese think tanks. Dr. Mabel Miaolu is the Secretary General of the CCG. She also served as a founder and Secretary General of the Global Young Leaders Dialogue Program, Deputy Director General of the Alliance of Global Talents Organization, the Secretary General of China Global Talents Society, Secretary General of the Policy Advisory Committee of the Western Return Scholars Association, and Deputy Director General of the International Writing Center of the Beijing Normal University. Her main research areas include the think tank construction, globalization theory, enterprises, globalization, and Chinese returnees, and study abroad development. He has published many academic papers and professional articles. And he has published a number of academic research books, including the series of the Blue Books on the international talents. We're delighted to have you here. You just introduced your research results in the field of the international talents and the returnees. In the past decades, I'm very interested in why did you all choose this field and studied it for so many years?
Okay. Let me start. I think we had a very good afternoon symposium on the Chinese returnees research and studies. And Center for China and Globalization, and of course, Alliance of Global Talent Organization are very interested and also very dedicated to the subject of study of the Chinese returnees and its impact and its importance. So I think this round table discussion on the roles of the Chinese returnees combined with the 20, 30 years of studies of the Center for China and Globalization. And it's, of course, I want to give the background about this roundtable English of what we have studied. We just gone through previously 3 very long sections of presentations, which is in Chinese, but we hope to introduce to our international viewers about how CCG has done studies. And also it's in line with the opening up of 40 years of China opening up. And then the returnee phenomena has really gone up with the time and has become a global phenomenon of Chinese returnees. Up to now, almost 10 million Chinese students has studied abroad in the last 30, 45 years, and about 7, 8 million has already returned to China. So we are studying this phenomenon, and Center for China and Globalization is really at the front and the center of these phenomenon studies, which we have published over 30 to 40 books in both Chinese and English, including almost 20 blue books of Chinese social science and economy on this phenomenon. So this is where we started today. So I'm very glad I'm going to discuss with David Zweig and CCG Vice President, and of course Dr. Miao, my co-author for many of the studies. Of course, Lawyer, you are chairing this roundtable, so maybe you can start. I'm just going to give some background of, for international viewers, what we have done. I've just started, talked about in the previous Chinese sections.
Well, thank you. I was trying to think of some good stories, and one particular came to mind, which was, so as I mentioned in my presentation, I had a co-researcher, a gentleman named Wei, who was the deputy director of the Liuxuefu Zhongxin, of the Center for Overseas Education. And their job primarily is to manage students going overseas, and then when the students come back, help them find jobs. Now, Wei is a very interesting, he's now retired, I haven't seen him for a couple of years, but he had a PhD from Beida in education. And he liked data, which is one of the reasons he liked me, right? And I remember we were at a conference, he invited me to a conference in Guangzhou, and we were on a panel together. He was the chair of the panel, and a Chinese gentleman, a researcher from the Guangzhou Academy of Social Science, gave a talk about the role of the government in encouraging people to come back. And so he talked about, saying, oh, the government does this and the government does that, and the influence is so great, and people go, and then it was my turn. And I said, I have to disagree with this person. I said, I've done a survey, and when I ask people why they came back, I give them a list of reasons to choose, right? And I said, if you look at the results of that, for entrepreneurs, the main reason is the market, right? For many scientists, it's their own unit that encourages them to come back. Some come back for family, some come back for different reasons. I said, but if you ask them the role of the government, I said the government role when they choose it is not very high in terms of the selection. This is back in, so we're talking in the mid-2000s. And so that was my point. And then a woman comes to the question and answer period, and a woman puts up her hand and she says, I'm puzzled. She said, here we have a Chinese man who's telling us that the government's role is really big. And here we have a foreigner who's telling us that the government's role is not so big. And she said, who should we believe? So Wei looks at her and says, go with the data. Who's ever got the data, that's the person.
No, but what I want to ask you is, now we are in the 21st century, but particularly in the last number of years, the geopolitical situation is getting very tense. And but also importantly, China is now become the second largest economy, and of course, we need more global talent. So maybe, you being the top experts in the world and studied returnees, and then what do you think about returnee phenomena? Can that, will not be interfered too much by this geopolitical, phenomena, and then will we maintain this global talent flow, which I think is good for the both developed and developing country, so that as researchers, all of us as researchers of this field, we like to see the continuity of the global talent flow. So how do you see the challenges, and obstacles that we can overcome? And of course, I see now that the study abroad has become more diversified. Used to be we all go to US, but now people go to Europe, go to other countries, and now many go to developing countries, ASEAN, Central Asia, even Africa, India. So would that they become, and they think that as a returnee phenomenon, we will see how long do you think that will still happen? Because some countries are getting less. I mean, Japan, for example. Right?
Let me ask you a question. Will the people that we're answering, talking to, will they have seen the video, the presentations that we made, or should I just assume that I can repeat what I've said? Ah, I see. Okay, okay. So, will the flow continue? Well, I think the flow will continue. I think the circulation will continue. But as you said, Henry, I think that the global situation is complex. Now, in some ways, the global situation is bringing Chinese back, right? You know that the United States government under President Trump made it very uncomfortable for Chinese, for some Chinese researchers to stay in the United States, which I think is a really silly thing to do, because now the United States is recognizing that they need that talent if they want to if they want to, as President Biden wants to, bring the chip industry back to America. All of a sudden they're going to say, hey, wait a second, we need this talent, right? And they need master's level students, and they need graduate students who can come and work in American companies at the same time that they've made it reasonably uncomfortable with some racism, with lots of, Chinese Americans do not feel very good. I mean, the surveys have shown that Chinese Americans are pretty unhappy with their situation in America. Now, one of the questions is, will those people come back to China, or will they move on to other countries, right? So again, even though America has made it uncomfortable, and we know, I've got data, which I didn't give here, we know that the number of Chinese students coming to America is dropping, even as the number of foreign students coming to America is recovering, right? I know that the number is something like, the numbers are back up 3.8, 3.9%, 2022 over 2021, right? The vast majority of them are actually Indian, right? 19%, the Indians are up 19%. The Chinese students are down about 8% coming to America, which is a real loss for the United States. But the high talent, whether they're going to come back to China or not, I think depends on some of the things that I talked about in my presentation, which is, the environment, right? The environment, both the macro environment and the micro environment. I mean, people will not come back if they think that they're not going to get the benefits that they're being promised. They are not going to come back if they feel that they go and work in a unit and all of a sudden they have to watch their backs, right? That maybe the boss of the unit, he has his own people in the unit that he's going to protect. Or they go back to a university and the president of the university has got his own PhD students that he's going to promote, and they may not get the kind of treatment that they want. Those are things that I think China's seriously got to think about. For that reason, I think that the more that university presidents have foreign PhDs or have spent time overseas as postdocs, the more that they understand what an open, good environment is for research, then that will improve the situation for people who are thinking of coming back.
Okay, I think that, I hope that the political situation won't interfere too much about this normal academic and people-to-people exchange and student flow. So we are, as a think tank, I think we are still a strong believer of this student exchange. I think it's, benefit both China, U.S., and any other countries. So that's what I say.
China and the United States relations is now facing a lot of challenges. Recently, President Xi announced that in the next 5 years, China will invite 50,000 American youths come to China for exchange and studies. What impact will it have on China and the United States relations in the future?
I'm very pleased to share some views in this occasion. We have done a lot of work. I think CCG is productive on this field for students study on the students overseas and the returnees. I think it's also a serious study of people mobility and the talents. I think it's one of the pillars for CCG theory about the concept of globalization is the people mobility. We think there are very strong pillars for the globalization. One is the people mobility, another is the enterprises going global. So the two pillars we would like to study more. Today we are very pleased to share the views on the one pillar is the students study overseas and the returnees. For me, I think it's a strong encouragement as President Xi went to San Francisco, share the kind of commitment from Chinese government in U.S. Would like to attract more than 15,000 students studying China in the coming years. I think he injected the momentum for the people mobility, especially the international education for the world. I think China will maintain the commitment to the world. Would like to stir up the kind of technology and the education and the youngsters communication in the coming years. Most of the people in the past 4 decades, we mentioned that maybe the commercial side, the business, multinational companies, and international trade itself is the keystone of the U.S.-China relation. But for me, for CCG, I think in the past few years, we found there's a very strong, very important finding is that between U.S. and China, between China and the rest of the world, the people-to-people, like today's our theme is that, our title is that people-to-people. That itself is the keystone, actually the true keystone of the geopolitical picture for the global peace and for U.S.-China relation. So itself is a strong signal and a message to the world. U.S.-China would like to work together in the future from Chinese side. I remember in history, China attracted 3,000 Japanese students and youngsters come to China to do more communication. It's a very, very important method for China and the rest of the world to strengthen and improve the people-to-people movement and understanding, to strengthen mutual understanding. I think in the future, the next generation itself is a very important part of our people-to-people. So if we attract the youngsters to study in China, to know China, like David today is a very positive example. In last 70s, he studied in China and he fell in love with the Chinese studies and leveraged the transnational studies, especially on the field of the returnees, to understand China more. Then moved to be the bridge, play the significant role as the bridge between China and the rest of the world. I think that is a good example. So I would like to know more people in the future through the program you mentioned in the coming years. Will be the strong bridge and the ambassador between U.S. and China to play more and more significant role for our world's peace. That is a very important method and program. So CCG would like to do something. We have the duality program. We would like to attract more those young talents and young American to understand China through CCG's activities and events, of course, including our works. Thank you.
How about David?
Yeah, I think that it will be a challenge. I think I will say that. It will be a challenge to get 50,000 people to come. I think it's a good goal, but I think it will be a challenge, and I think that many of the people who come will be coming because they want to graduate and then maybe get a job, right? I think that one of the things that's important for young Americans would be to come and try and get a job here, right? Get to know China, learn the language, maybe even come, get a master's degree, an MBA at a place like Tsinghua or Beida. I mean, there's very, very good schools here where they can get a degree and be able to understand China better. And I think it's important that China creates an atmosphere that says to these young people, you're welcome here to come study and get a job, right? And that China is open for business to the foreign companies and to young people coming and staying.
Yeah, I think this is really incredible. Of course, this announcement by President Xi in San Francisco. I mean, while he's attending the China and U.S. Summit, which he announced because in the next 5 years, China is going to invite 50,000 youths to come to China. I think this is a major decision, and it's a big, tremendous goodwill on the part of Chinese people. And absolutely, you're saying there are some challenges to realize that. I can understand that because we now have a tight geopolitical political situation now. And but I think, as you said, China is a big market, second largest economy, and in great needs of global talent. So 50,000 youths to come to China. I mean, how to do that in 5 years' time? I mean, China has 31 provinces and cities and 3,000 universities, top 100 universities, and if they allocate some quotas to Beijing, Shanghai, and Hangzhou, Chengdu, or Guangzhou. I mean, all those cities must have some initiative and enthusiasm to welcome foreign youngsters, American youngsters, and then, of course, I mean, they are not coming off a degree program. They could be for summer programs, short-term programs, and if there's interest, they could do for the longer program. I remember, President Clinton, President Obama and Secretary Clinton used to announce 100,000 strong, which is 100,000 American students studying in China, which they haven't realized that. The peak time they had is 15,000, 15,000. That's the peak time. And now they're talking there's only about 700-800 now, American students in China. So I think this is an extremely great initiative on the Chinese part, and to show welcome, to show the hospitality, and to send a signal to the universities and also companies across China to welcome American students, American youngsters to come to China. So I think this is an extremely good signal. Probably difficult, but I think with the I mean, we also have hundreds of twin cities between China and U.S., twinning arrangement, NGOs, think tanks, university linkages. I think if everybody mobilized to welcome our American counterpart, things could be not that difficult.
Well, I also want to stress that, we're talking about America, Sino-American relations, but I think it's important to realize that there are other countries that had many students here, and post-COVID, China has the bounce back, the rebound has not happened at the pace that I think China would like to see it, particularly Korean students, for example, right? There used to, the largest group of students, foreign students in China, was Korean, right? And they're not back yet.
Well, I think it's partly true because I think there was going to be a flight issues, there's a ticket issue, cost issue, and of course we are just get out of COVID. So I think, but the momentum is good. But at least I think the top leadership from China projected and actually calls for and invited 50,000 in the next 5 years. I mean, things will gradually changing. And of course, not only U.S. students, but China welcomes all students from all over the world. And then we see more and more coming back now.
From my observation, I find that the students itself is a catalyst for the people-to-people. It's a catalyst for China and the rest of the world relationship. So after pandemic, we know pandemic is not so helpful for the people-to-people exchanges, the policies, the physical communication. A lot of those fields have been cut it off by pandemic. But how to resume it? It's not just if just depends on the commercial side, like the international flights resumed by those companies. It's not easy. I think from the top leaders, President Xi himself sent the signal to the world by himself. So it's very strong from top leader to not just to US to send the commitment, but to the domestic market, to China, from the top to the provincial to municipal level. Then all of those leaders, all of those factors, they can be mobilized to do something, to move forward, push forward the US and China, China and the rest of the world, the people-to-people exchanges. That is kind of a mobilized process. I think we should pay more attention on this. That's why I would like to stress the meaningful side of this signal. Then maybe it's a kind of momentum injected process to push forward that. Then we can see in the future more and more companies and different level government, they will, and different ministries, they will have more policies on this, issue more policies on this. This is my hope. Like Henry said, we can, China has a China's spatial political system. They can allocate the local government and the different ministries to do something, issue more sub-policies to support the US-China students exchanges. That's why I mentioned in his history between China and Japan, we have done something, attracted more than 3,000 Japanese youngsters come to China, and maybe there are same number of counterparts to went to Japan to resume the China and Japan relationship. I think right now, currently today, we still can, mobilize a kind of Chinese local government to do, and the different ministries to do that. Maybe different universities, different the schools, and the other different the municipal level can attract some number U.S. youngsters. CCG would like to attract some youngsters
David,
as well.
We see your photo you just showed us at your presentation, that you're graduated from Peking University, and among your classmates, many of them ambassadors, counselors, or even ministers,
Right.
A lot of top experts. I mean, Hemi Cruz now is the ambassador of the Philippines in China also, right?
2 of them.
That's right. So you have a class of ambassadors. So you see how important the student exchanges and studies in China
I mean,
and in the U.S.
maybe one thing to do would be to have a meeting of my Beta graduating class, right? And invite them here, and see if they can speak on behalf of their experience and of the opening up. As you guys were talking, I was thinking back to the 1980s. We came here, times were pretty tough. When we were students, I mean, this just emphasizes the changes that have happened in China over the 40 years. When we came here, students at Beida, for the first round of the dinner, they could get a mantou, right? But if they wanted a second helping of some kind of starch, they had to have a wotou, right? They had to have cornbread with no sugar and no flour, right? So that whole group of people knows the changes that have happened. And we support an open China. That's what, our commitment is, to an open China, a China that engages with the world, and our own governments engaging with China. That's what we support. That's what when you say got involved. I mean, that was part of what got me involved. And I remember when they were building new dormitories in the 80s, right? We lived in Arshulo. We lived in building number 25 at Beida, which was pretty rough going, right? But then they built Shaoyuan. They built a really nice, and all over, all over China. So as you say, this is a country where the system says that if the leader calls for something to happen, the locals are likely to respond. So hopefully, when the locals respond, the foreign students who have their own agency, as we like to say in social science, who can make their own decisions, that they'll make the decisions to come, or to come visit, or to come. I mean, even short-term visits are always quite good, because it can give you the sense of what the place is really like, and maybe some of the publicity overseas just is more harsh than it is. And I think that China's moving into a period with the General Secretary Xi's statement of 50,000 people coming. I think all of that and the opening of the improved relations with the United States, I'm hoping that all foretells a sort of a better engagement with the world than that we've seen in the last little while.
Okay, we just talk about the impact of the epidemic on the international people-to-people exchange. And now we are entering the post-academic era. Now, how do you think about the new changes in the role of the returnees in this new area? And how can they make the better use of the advantages and contribute to China's development and the international people-to-people exchange?
Yeah, thank you, moderator. Actually, we divided the Chinese returnees in the modern history into 5 phases. We are probably at the fifth stage, where it's actually coincided with the 45 years of opening up. But I see the returnee role is still significant, because maybe at the beginning, when Deng Xiaoping called for opening up, we need a lot of entrepreneurs, we need a lot of science coming back, teachers coming back, and later on we had a lot of entrepreneurs coming back. And now you can see the returnee and Chinese student study abroad has reached almost 10 million numbers. That's a large numbers. And then now we are into a more fragile geopolitical world. And then we have 2 wars going on in Ukraine and in Palestinian Gaza. And then we have a very tight China-US relations. We're getting into a multipolar world, and then there's no multipolar system to support that. So a new role now, I think, for the returnees and for those international savvy student scholars and talents is really to have more people-to-people exchange, more people-to-people diplomacy, more people-to-people understanding. And then the other thing I think for Chinese returnees to do, which I was interviewed by China News Daily yesterday, they noticed a phenomenon, the dual circulation, both in China and international, which means there's more Chinese young people, even though educated in China, now going to work international in different countries now, circulating around the world. And a big, there's 2 million Chinese working in Africa, there's many working in Central Asia, and things like that. And so I see in the new era, in addition to the scientific, entrepreneurial, this kind of a role, and even, of course, the public domains in China, there's a new role added and emphasized now, is for the, overseas student, Chinese returnees, to have a more people of different countries, to help the country relations, and to some extent think about the future challenges, but global challenges, like AI, like digital world, like all those things, how they can, be part of this system that can really link the world together. I think that in the fifth, I'm not saying fifth generation, but in the 5th stage of Chinese, study abroad movement, now we need more people like that to maintain, repair the relation, be the ambassadors of the ordinary folks across China and outside world. So that's probably a new role I've been finding lately, that particularly out of our own experience, we found there's more people like to hear from directly from people who have international knowledge and language, culture savvy, and so we're really getting in the era we need more and more people like that, both ways, in China and welcome foreign students coming to China. So that's why I'm strongly echo what President Xi had just mentioned, inviting 50,000 American youth come to China, and of course we will welcome many thousands of other countries' youth come to China.
I want to jump in, and I want to say, you're saying this added role for the young people. I think CCG should think of a role, or at least somehow, maybe think of the role of somehow to, America and China, or China and Canada. I mean, there used to be a lot of government officials meeting, semi-government officials meeting. You're talking about people-to-people exchanges. That kind of dried up. COVID dried it up. And now the geopolitical situation has made it difficult to get that restarted, though I understand the Biden administration and the Chinese side, have started to talk about picking that up. But I think on the issue of talent, I think that there needs to be a dialogue. I think it's really important that both sides recognize that there's a lot of misunderstanding, there's difficulties in the bilateral relationship, and in many ways, it's the overseas students in the United States, the Chinese who have stayed in the United States or working or in Canada, they're the victims. They're the ones who have really suffered from this difficult bilateral relationship. And they really have an interest, I think, in some kind of dialogue, and CCG is the kind of, second tier or, what the track 2 organization that needs to, find people to talk to on the other side. I know that, for example, the National Academy of Sciences in the United States is very interested in trying to understand for itself how Americans can get more overseas talent and get them to come and get them to stay. So I think there's an opportunity for more dialogue. And I'm more than willing. I'm retired, so semi-retired. But I mean, I think those are the kinds of things that really need to be done to be able to stabilize, if not advance, this relationship.
Yeah, I would like to echo with those two professors. Yes, the mutual understanding is more and more significant than before. We know it's very hard to get back to, people say that it's very hard to get back to the golden time between US and China, like the past 4 decades we have done. But I think we still need to understand and explore how to coexist with each other. This is the final point we have to face. So between US and China, the students study in each other country. There's a big deficit. There are much more Chinese students studying US than US students studying China. So people say there's just hundreds American students studying China right now. But how to fill the gap? I think that's why President Xi himself sent the signal to US that we would like to have more American students studying China. So like David mentioned, we need more platform like CCG to offer, to get more an organized occasion to have the dialogue. But who to do that? Maybe like the returnees, Henry and me and our colleagues, our team is example. But in the future, we need more, like we know some think tankers in US. Some of them, they have the experience in China, in history. They are the students studying China from US. So those experiences very, very important for them. They have the people-to-people connection. they have the kind of, chemistry with the Chinese society. They have a kind of inspiration from Chinese society and culture. They can do something. So sometimes if lack of the understanding and experience in the other country, you have not so strong confidence to do some communication, especially in the serious geopolitical tension period. So I think we have more of those students to study in China with this experience, with confidence, then to bridge, then to offer the platform, then move forward to the second track.
I think we have to move to a second track fast, to be honest. I think that it's important for both sides to recognize that they need to do that. It's one thing, it's not one thing, it's important that, General Secretary Xi called for 50,000 students, but there also needs to be an effort on the Chinese side to say, let's have a dialogue about this. If you want to talk about the overseas students and the exchange, let's have a dialogue about it. You could get the Natural Science Foundation of China and the National Science Foundation of the United States to sit down, right? Those are two major funding agencies, both of which are deeply involved in this process, right? You need them to both sides to be willing to carry out that kind of dialogue. And because, it needs to be solved. I mean, I think that, the time is not, 5 years is a long time given the tensions in the world right now.
Well, I think, still a bright spot that even though we have so many difficulties, but at least China has taken the first step to announce that. Of course, we need more dialogue. I mean, not only these foundations, but universities, NGOs, think tanks, even high schools. So there's many things, training arrangement of different cities. So many things can be done. So let's try our best.
Over the past 20 years, the CCG has continuously put forward new concepts about the study abroad and the returnees, and formed a new narrative, the returnee. After so many years of the development, whether there will be returning science or theory in the future.
Well, maybe I try to answer this first because I think as we're concluding this roundtable of dialogue, I think whether it's going to be a study subject or become a learning major, it depends. But I think CCG has already contributed to the global talent as a major. We added the first textbook for China on global talent, which is published by the Ministry of Human Resource Publishing House and has been used in the universities. So I think returnee and overseas student, diaspora, and of course migration in that sense, is all part of the theory, continuous development. And CCG is dedicated to do that. That's why we're having this roundtable today, because we want to emphasize in a globalization era, I mean, where is global talent, global mobility, global circulation, it's getting more and more important, particularly people-to-people exchanges. And we have just gone through the COVID, which closed us up for 3 years, particularly for China. So it's for the most important that we have to revive this people-to-people exchange, revive the student exchange, revive the tourism, revive the diaspora flow. So, in that sense, we need to revive the studies on that too. So CCG is very proud as the leading think tank on studying migration, on student exchanges, on diaspora. We've been doing that for 20, 30 years. I mean, as our publications has testified that. So what I want to conclude is to say, your question is very interesting. Whether we have continuous interest, whether this can be a subject of study. I'm sure the answer is yes. I mean, David would probably agree with that. And of course, we have to continue to do that. We published about almost 20 blue books of the Chinese Social Academy Press, which they have a certain criteria to publish in the last 10, 20 years, which is remarkable. No think tank in China has done so much study on this area. And so we want to thank our researchers, of course, all the government also very supportive, and our international friends, scholars, networks. So we want to continue that. And I think this is one of the areas that CCG has really worked on it a lot. And of course, CCG now is diversified into many areas, other areas now, like globalization, like global governance, international relations, China-US relations, but migration, student exchanges, and of course, these returnees are still important as we are reflected on this point. 45 years of China opening up and reform, 45 years of China-US relation, diplomatic ties has been established all around this time. And we reflect this returnees position from zero, being almost after Cultural Revolution, to now almost 10 million people has gone study overseas, back and forth. And now also China every year welcome 500,000 foreign students come to China before the pandemic. So that's enormous force for changing China and shaping China and strengthening the Chinese relation with the outside world and the world with China. I mean, David is a good example of a student studied 30, 40 years ago at the Peking University. Now he become a top expert on returnees now. So just to cut it short, I want to conclude that this is really a great area. We study a lot on that, and we'll continue to do so, and we feel very proud of that.
I would use this opportunity, though, to emphasize the fact that, yes, we need to do more. We need to continue to do this, right? As more people come back, even if people don't come back, we have to do research on those who come back. Why do they come back? How is their life when they come back? What kind of situation? I mean, as I said, I have my own theory, right? Shortages, environment, you've got to improve the environment for people. But I would call on increasing the opportunity for us, me as a foreigner. I've been doing research on this for a long time. Just give me the chance to keep doing the research. I'll continue to create what I can in terms of helping you build your theory, testing my own views on this, and the people, the people want to continue to be able to do research in China. And I think it's important that we be allowed to continue to do that.
Yes, I would like to add more points for conclusion of today's seminar. Actually, I think I'm lucky to find out this group of people. I also would like to express my, gratitude on the kind of, those group of people. As this, the students study abroad and the returnees, it's a group of people. Those group reflected the wave of opening up and reform, aligned with the wave of opening up and reform. So China's great openness and reform itself is a very significant, a crucial, remarkable period for the human being. It's a great movement for the human being itself. So if we find out a group of people reflect the movement of the human historical moment, I think it's as a scholar, as a think tanker, what we can do. So I would like to emphasize the group of people's meaning of the history. And it's a sustainable study for us as well. If we study the globalization and the great openness of China, I think it will be the CCG's legacy, I think, in the future for our study for the opening up and reform for the globalization itself.
Now I would like to give a brief summary about the discussion. The China and the United States, the talent exchange and the cooperation It's very important to relations between our two countries. In the post-academic era, strengthening the people-to-people exchange is a good way to solve the current global challenges. And we hope that Returnees research can provide a new perspective for the people-to-people exchange in the future. And thank you so much about your insight. Thank you.
Thank you.